It comes as no surprise, but it's happening again. Georgia, the number one ranked team in the country, according to the coaches poll, which just came out today. The Dogs, with, as you can see down here, 46 of the first place votes. Ohio State with 7. Oregon, which is also a state, just like Ohio State. Number 3, Texas at 4. Bama 5. Ole Miss 6. I think that's the lowest Alabama's been in that I can recall. Maybe since 08. Ole Miss at 6, Notre Dame at 7, Michigan at 8, Penn State 9, the Noles at 10. And then you go with Mizzou, LSU, Utah, and then Georgia will open with number 14, Clemson. It's going to be a curious season opener. 1-14, that's not that bad for the opener for Georgia. It's going to be a real good test for them. But look, this is not surprising in my mind. I would go. I would go Georgia 1, Ohio State 2. I might flip flop Oregon and Texas. But this is essentially correct. I think once you get past really number 5, you're looking at it's kind of a mishmash after a while. I mean, Penn State's not done anything for a long time, but let's focus on Georgia while we can. This is only the third time that the Dogs have been ranked number 1 coming into a season. That seems hard to believe considering they've got 4 national championships. But, there's been haven't been to the practices and so forth this season so far. This is a really good team, and I think you try not to kind of overdo it with any one thing that happens in a season, or excuse me, in a preseason. But I have to say, after Sunday, there's a lot of momentum for this Georgia team. I mean, I talked to some folks over the weekend. Make sure you're checking out. I'm going to put it on the screen here real quick. Make sure you're checking out our article, our insider report right here. Who's flashed so far? You can get Dawg Post for $1 until the Alabama game right now. So you sign up today and you get a credit until the Alabama game, which is pretty deep in September. So it's like getting 2 months for $1. But anyhow, in our insider report talks a lot about the players that are getting the most attention. The running backs are an area that I think that folks can really be curious to hear about. But one person told me over the weekend, Florida, talking about Trevor Etienne, Florida didn't use him the right way last year. He's not like he isn't his brother, but he's not far from that either, which is talking about, of course, Travis Etienne, who was exceptional at Clemson. He was one of the guys that really powered them to that 18 national championship. If Georgia can get that kind of production from Etienne, like 90 yards a game for the whole season, they haven't had that since DeAndre Swift and had averaged 87 yards in 2019. So it's been some time since one running back has been that productive. I love Zamir White and James Cook as a duo. They were really good in 2021. But there's no one way to win a national championship, as we've seen at Georgia. I mean, I would argue that in 22 they won it with their offense. There was so much concern, for such a long time at Georgia. Well, from fans about can Stetson Bennett win a shootout? The answer to that was yes, but it took until the Ohio State game to prove that. I say all that to say, Georgia won it with defense in 21, for sure. I mean, it was clearly more about defense. They weren't bad on offense at all. I mean, they were scoring 40 against Tennessee. Let me just refresh my memory. They scored a pile of points in 2021. And they scored 56, 40, 62, 37, 34, 30, 34, 40, 43, 41, 56, 45, 24, 34, 33. That's not, you got an offensive problem. That's not at all what that was. But the defense was allowing 3, 7, 13, 0, 0, 10, 13, 7, 6, 17, 7, 0, 41 for Alabama, 11, and then 18. When one team scores over 20 points on you the entire season, you're winning it with defense. A season later, 49, 33, 48, 39, 26, 42, 55, 42, 40, 27 in the rain, 45 in the junk, 16 in the worst weather I've ever seen at Kentucky, 37, 50, 42, 65. They won it with offense. I mean, when you're scoring that many times over 40 points, 49, 48, Oregon, South Carolina, Auburn, 42, Vanderbilt, 55, Florida, 42, Mississippi State, 45, LSU, 50, Ohio State, 42, TCU, 65. You're scoring over 40 points 9 times in a season. Yeah, there's different ways to win it. So when you look at this 24, team, what I want to get back to here is my rhetoric or my view of the world has been and will continue to be that this is going to be an explosive passing offense for Georgia, Carson Beck and company. But when I hear what I hear over the weekend, and it's just like, well, wait a second now, are they really going to be that good at? I mean, Kirby talked about this, and I'm not going to let this go. I'm not going to let this go. Kirby talked about this earlier in the week, or earlier last week, whenever it was. I'm getting the days confused. I'm waiting for this tropical depression to settle in over the rest of Georgia. That'll be great fun. But when he's talking about the running backs, and I know I've talked about this a lot. He said, I think we've got a room of good backs, as talented as we've had, but inexperienced. I just took that as like a one-off. And I thought it was important that day. But then like over the weekend, when you hear some of the discussion from people about, ETN, but it's Branson Robinson and Frazier that are getting the eyeballs now. And now Branson Robinson, part of the fascination there is that he had an injury, not necessarily an injury that you recover from, in a short amount of time. Well, I mean, in time for this season, short amount of time. It's been more than a short amount of time that he's had to suffer through all this. But, I think people to some degree are kind of, I don't know about pumped up is the right way to put it, but they're like, wow, he's back. He looks back. So that's some of it. But, and then the addition of ETN and then Frazier, it's just like, that's just 3 of the guys they've got. They've got, like, when Cash Jones is way down on your list, Cash Jones made plays for Georgia last year. Like, people are forgetting that, and that's fine. And, like, I'm not sitting here suggesting that Cash Jones is going to play in the NFL. I'm not. I do not think that will happen personally, and he can prove me wrong. But, he was a solid player for them. I don't know how many touchdowns he scored. And if you were wondering on your bingo card, how long it would take for me to talk about Cash Jones, it took this long. He scored the touchdown against Carolina. He was their number 4 running back last year. Okay, behind Edwards, Milton, and then Roderick Robinson. That's what they went through this past season with. They had 2 really good scholarship running backs who carried the load. Roderick Robinson missed a lot of the season. Obviously, Branson missed a lot of the season, the whole season. So no running back for Georgia besides Cash Jones played in every single game. All right? He went 22 for 161. He averaged 7 yards a carry, which is a ton. But, he was a guy they had to depend on last year. He was number 4 for them. He will be like number 6 or 7 for them this year. So you're going to have ETN, Robinson. I'm just going to go in order. ETN, Robinson. I would say, okay, I don't think he'll be the 4, but that would assume that none of the freshmen are going to do anything, which I don't believe. So my suspicion is he'll be like number 6 or something like that. He may be higher. He might be the 5, but he's not going to be a guy that you're turning to in a tight game against South Carolina, closing the game out. And that's what happened last year. And if Georgia's if Georgia's offense is going to have that many weapons at running back, that means they're going to really be good on offense. And you know, this defense, some sort of mixed. I can't tell what's going on with the defense yet. So I'll just say that as far as the front. Yeah, some people that were like really encouraged. Yeah, some people were like, they got. So I can't tell. I just, the whole point of Dog Post is to be honest with y'all. It's not to like tell you what we think we want you to hear or whatever. Like so right now, let's just see what happens with the defensive line. The linebackers seem to be like, that sounds like an area where Georgia's really going to be strong. Okay, that's not shocking, but the defensive line, I don't know yet. I don't even know why I'm started talking about the defensive line, but with that said, the running backs, y'all. If the running backs are 80% as good as folks are sort of starting to sound like, then this is going to be a pretty lethal offense. The reason why I started talking about the defensive line, I've got like a train of thought here, is that, when I was talking about earlier with 21 and 22, 22 is probably as close as you're going to get to like the ultimate team where you have just an explosive offense and a just ready to stymie you defense. That's what that's sort of where you're at with this Georgia, with the 22 defense. 22 team. I mean, that was just such a good team. Top 5 in total offense. Top 5 in total offense. Number 9 in total defense. I mean, you just don't get that. Number 1 in total in rushing. Running again, passing, in rushing defense, That was a really good team. That was a really, really, really good team that was pushed twice and answered the bell both times. If the beginning of the fall is at the beginning of fall camp, if what people are saying there is accurate, which is, I don't know about that part, but if it is, then this offense is going to really score a lot of points. And I look forward to hating on Mike Bobo in the comments below, for just like for y'all getting your, making sure you're taking advantage of your data plans. But the fact of the matter is that this is going to be a really good offense. And, they are going to be hard to stop. Other teams are going to be really good on offense too. Ohio State. When you look at the top 25, you've got 7 teams from the SEC in the top 25. Okay, that's a lot. By the way, make sure you're checking that insider story out below. I want to mention that one more time. All you gotta do is go to the website, click on. I'm going to link it down below. But if it's not there, just look for this picture of Kirby. And then, Kirby and I both we're graying, and it's not cool. But of course, when you got blonde hair, it's not as obvious. Whereas with me, it is obvious, unfortunately. But, when you check out this story, you're going to see a lot of the insider tidbits that you're not going to get anywhere else. And it's going to give you context that you don't see from anybody else. But when you take a look at this top 25, all the SEC teams are in bold. Texas A&M, I'll believe it when I see it. Oklahoma, new year in the league. Let's just see. Tennessee, obviously. Tennessee is a team that, I would not pick them to beat Georgia, particularly not in Athens. But that Oklahoma Tennessee game is going to be very curious at the beginning of the season. You got LSU and Mizzou, both of them. If both of them are in the playoff, that means Alabama and Ole Miss missed it, probably, or at least one of the two did. And then obviously at the top, Alabama not getting a first place vote in an AP poll, in a preseason poll, coaches poll. That's a curious thing. That's something that's not happened probably in some time. But anyway, I think the team that's at 2 is Georgia's direct competitor. I think they are the one that's going to be the hardest to deal with, which is Ohio State. But, another thing, I talked over the weekend to people I trust, and this particular person is not a Georgia person. It was just a person in college football. And, Ohio State's going to have to figure out quarterback. I mean, that's we're going to be saying that next year about Georgia. But I think with a little more, I don't know if certainty is the right word, but a little more, there will be more data at that place than what you're dealing with right now at Ohio State with Will Howard going there. I mean, there is real, like, I'm not sure about that. So amongst the college football talking folks, the people that pick up the phone or call when they're, out and about, um, I think for the Dogs, if what people are saying is a close to part of what happened over the weekend, of course, was that you had a flush of people, a crush of people, really, that got the ability to watch practice, and the vast majority of them have never seen a football practice before. So some of the information that's out there is not necessarily. It's not that it's bad information. It's just folks who are inexperienced at talking about it, or there's not a lot of context to it. So you had that on Saturday, but or excuse me, Sunday. But there have been other people that have been at practices. I mentioned Saturday. Let's just see how it goes. I mean, I think that this is a good team. Um, I think it's possible it could be an exceptional offense, but the defense will have to do their part too. I think for me right now, there's a few questions at Georgia. They're not giant questions, but like right this second, is Taylor Hallish going to be your center? That's one question that matters. I don't know if that's a problem, but it's just a question. Secondly, is your defense, maybe not, these are not in order, but is your defensive line, like, what is the answer there? And we won't know that until probably the Alabama game, to be honest. I mean, the Clemson game will give us a window into where Georgia's defensive line is at, but let's just be honest. When's the last time, I will leave you with this question, you can look it up or whatever. When's the last time Clemson had an offensive lineman drafted in the first round of the NFL draft? Okay? You look that up and comment down below. Let me know. And then Kentucky, I don't know. So, but Alabama, they got an offensive line. I can tell you that right now. So that will be the first real, like, we know what we're dealing with at that stage. So the defensive line, is Tate your guy? Have they settled down the receiver situation? A lot of receivers, they're all really good. Who's running really with the ones? So what's the story with all of that? So there's some stuff there. Is Carson where he needs to be? I'm not worried about Carson Beck. Let me know. I'll let you know how Carson Beck is when we get to December. Okay. So, like, concerning yourself with a guy who, led the team to an undefeated season, he's gonna be fine. You watch the Auburn game, the Missouri game, the Kentucky game, the Ole Miss game, the Florida State game, even the Alabama games. Like, the guy, his worst game to me was either the first game or the Vanderbilt game, probably the Vanderbilt game. So, I'm not concerned about Carson Beck. Carson Beck's going to have games where he doesn't play well. He's a quarterback. These things happen. And that's why you turn around and give it to your running backs or throw it to them in the flat. I mean, you don't have to win the way people want you to win. You get to play and win however you want to play or however you grind it out. It's whatever. And then, like in the secondary, are those options? Are they settling down on folks? I mean, we're 4 days into camp. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 5 days into camp. So it's like, you don't want to get too concrete with what you're doing. You've got another 10-ish days to get to, where you're really prepping for Clemson. And there's no reason to go fast. They got a solid 12-ish days, but they'll have some off time in there. So you're still okay in terms of narrowing in on what you want to do. How is KJ Bolden, Nate Frazier, or like Ellis Robinson? There are some really good young players on this team. And, Bolden, the opportunity might not be there for Bolden as much as there was for Malachi Starks, but he may make an opportunity. So there's a lot of this is a really good team. But, I've done this long enough to know you kind of got to chill out with any panic or any banner raising during August. I mean, it's just that's where we're at with it. So I don't know. I think them being ranked number one, I get it. I mean, they should be ranked number one. If anybody would rank Ohio State number one, with Georgia not positioned where they're at, I'd get that. But really, the quarterback is problematic to me. In my view, it's concerning for them. So there's that. But yeah, I mean, everything's in front of Georgia and everybody else. No one's lost games yet. We don't know where people's flaws really are at. Georgia has flaws, I can assure you of that. But let's just see what happens as we go on. Check out the site. Make sure you sign up for the newsletter. We'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.